Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Past Marathon, Modernizing Your Data Platform. We're excited you could join us today for Eman Yarlagadda and Vaishali Paliwal's session, SQL Server 2008 EOS is Coming, Modernizing with Intel Technologies Part 1. The Past Marathon features back-to-back live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the past community. The sessions will be recorded and posted online after the event. You'll receive an email letting you know when the recordings are available. My name is Jay O'Donnell, and I'll be the moderator for this session. I have a few introductory slides before I hand the reins over to Eman and Vaishali. If you require technical assistance, please type your request into the questions pane located on the right side of your screen, and someone will assist you. This question pane is also where you may ask questions throughout the presentation. Feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the Q&A portion of the session, I'll read your questions aloud to Eman and Vaishali. You are able to zoom in on the presentation content by using the zoom button located on the top of your presentation window. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session, which will pop up after the webinar ends in your web browser. Your feedback is really important to us for future events, so please take a moment to complete this. In lead up to SQL Server 2008 end of support, we recruited Sandy, an expert in all things migration, along with an all-star lineup of speakers from Microsoft and Intel to smoothly guide you to your final destination, a modern data platform. Whether you're interested in moving to an updated on-premises, cloud, or hybrid solution, past Microsoft, Intel, and Sandy, of course, have teamed up for a must-attend series of webinars, in-person events, and migration resources dedicated to giving you the tools you need to migrate with confidence. Visit past.org modernization.aspx to see the collection of on-demand videos, helpful blogs, presentation slides, and other industry-leading learning content from past, Microsoft, and Intel. This past marathon session is presented by Eman Vaishali. Eman is responsible for strategic business development and product marketing of hybrid cloud capabilities in the data center group at Intel. In his 20-plus years of experience at Intel, he has held multiple roles in the field of networking, enterprise application development, B2B engineering, HPC, and hybrid cloud proliferation. Vaishali has been with Intel for over 13 years in various roles. She currently manages a team of highly technical engineers with focus on full-stack Intel hardware and ISV software optimizations using micro-architectural and in-depth software performance analysis for delivering most optimized data platforms, end-to-end solution stack for on-prem and in cloud. And without further ado, here is Eman and Vaishali with SQL Server 2008 EOS is Coming, Modernizing with Intel Technologies Part 1.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Hopefully, you're enjoying the talks from Intel and Microsoft today. This one and the next one, and I hope some of you have also attended Jake and Ramnik's talk this morning. We're going to build on that. This and the next are a bit of a deep dive into some of the Intel technologies and our approach and what we're trying to bring to the conversation around end of support and the migration of SQL Server. You're going to hear more around what are the key drivers that we see to modernizing, as well as some of the impacts if these decisions are not made soon, and what are the triggers really, right? And with Vaishali, we'll get into some of the SQL benchmarks, and then following this talk, I hope you'll dial into the discussion by Ken, Laterno, and Alessandro to go further deep into some of the technologies that are going to enable this journey to SQL Server 2017 and 2019. In the current environment, it's business no longer as usual, right? I think you've heard some of this earlier, and I want to reiterate the key points. 71% of the IT organizations are citing legacy infrastructure is the biggest barrier to business transformation. There's a ton of investment that went into what we have built over the last 8 years or so, and it is hard to modernize that to the latest, right? So, but based on where the business is going and the acceleration that's needed, the legacy starts to bear you down, right? So this is a repeat and a very consistent feedback we are hearing about how the legacy has become a big barrier. When you look ahead, 50% of the global GDP will be digitized by 2021. Um, this is the starting point, right? A lot of it is digital economy. A lot of it is about starting with an advantage. So how do you then deal with all of this competition that you have, or how to succeed in business when you're dealing with legacy, right? The sooner you modernize, the sooner you transform that, the more competitive you're going to be. And then when we look at even the S&P 500, by 2020, 75% of these companies are going to be new. Surviving and succeeding with that in that competitive environment has become a huge necessity, right, to for the enterprises, right? So modernizing gives us that advantage, gives you the advantage to move faster and then compete. So these are all changing trends or trends that are impacting that is it doesn't mean that we can continue to run business as usual, but we have to run with these changes. There are constraints with the old infrastructure, right? And we are seeing there's a deluge of data that's happening in the environment. There's a lot of data that businesses are collecting. But the important thing is, how do you work when the data that we're collecting is not able to, we cannot integrate that, or we cannot get the insights out of it because we still have a very siloed environment. Let's look at the network bottlenecks, right? Huge amount of data that's being transmitted either from cloud to on-premises, or even within the on-prem data centers, right? Huge network bottlenecks are growing. And just the volume of the data means we have to rethink storage. The old way of thinking about handling storage is no longer going to give us the advantage. And workforce skills. Cybersecurity, for example, has become a very important skill, and there's a huge amount of or the lack of resources with that skill coming in. What about all those resources that develop those legacy applications? They're probably no longer in the company, right? How do you then modernize, knowing that we do not have that tribal knowledge? So these are all challenges that enterprises are facing today. The story we're trying to communicate is not necessarily only about a out of compliant software. It's also out of compliant hardware. I think we have reached an inflection point here. But even from a software standpoint, when you're out of compliant or you're using outdated software, there's loss of functionality. Obviously, Microsoft and major companies are always innovating. There's a lot of new features that are added. So we're losing a ton of advantage by staying on the old versions. There's increased risk. Security, it seems like every day the bad guys seem to be winning. We got to compete, we got to fight that. And we need to get to the latest software that's built on those foundations and gives you the fighting chance. Compliance concern, especially with GDPR, HIPAA, PCI requirements, and SOX, that you need to be on the latest software to be compliant with regulations. And then, of course, higher maintenance costs of running old software. What's triggering all of this is also the point in time we have reached with Microsoft SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2 reaching end of extended support by July, as well as Windows Server 2008 and 2008 R2 that'll be reaching end of support by January 14, right? So there are always software that are going to reach an end of support, and there's a need to upgrade. But here are some specific reasons why we're having these conversations, why we're trying to bring the innovations in software as well as hardware to the table, because there is a trigger that we need to address, right? And the world has changed a lot since these versions were deployed initially. Let's look at some of the benefits of modernization then. Surveys done by Intel and others have clearly shown there's a 2x growth in operating margin just from modernizing the infrastructure, modernizing IT, and how IT enables the business growth. There's productivity increase of 40K, more revenue per employee. There's higher average net income on revenue as well. The agility is what we're trying to bring with that IT infrastructure modernization, right? And the demands on IT from the business, the faster, more agile way of developing applications, the flexibility between an on-prem requirement versus cloud, and giving that flexibility to the business has become paramount. So that agility is what is critical, and getting to that is critical, and staying with old is not going to get us there. We've referred to this legacy technology as a technical debt, and benefits of modernizing now is really to reduce that technical debt, either from resources and the skills that they have, the cost that's going into maintaining old technology, or the fact that we're still dealing with the old way of storage computer network is causing that debt to grow. And I think this is the time to think innovatively, both from the software and the hardware standpoint, to reduce that debt. Data security and compliance, we've touched on that. It's become paramount to address security gaps and not lose differentiation with the competitors. So this is a critical benefit of modernization. Path to hybrid cloud. The conversation has shifted to not all cloud, migrating everything to the public cloud. Conversation has shifted from keeping everything on-prem to a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud as the most preferable choice. And the innovation that you can bring with the latest Microsoft software and hardware from Intel is to set you on that path to hybrid cloud. Some of you may have data requirements that need to keep that data on-prem, but you do want to have the flexibility to leverage an Azure public cloud for services there. HCI is another critical benefit. Modernizing storage from the legacy way of doing things to making better use of the infrastructure that you have through an HCI configuration. And then let's look at what are some of those support expanding workloads and the DevOps requirements, and we'll go a little bit deeper into each one of these. Decreasing technical debt, what are the benefits? Replatforming apps for faster time to market, lower maintenance cost. You can see the IT staff efficiency. The studies have shown going up by 35%, budget savings through consolidation, through avoiding that lack of tribal knowledge. Modernizing means that the users are much more trained on latest technologies and saves cost, and less revenue loss from unplanned downtime. It's about reducing the business impact, right? I mean, today we have to kind of be awake in the night thinking, hey, if something goes wrong and we're still running on outdated software or outdated hardware, or the people that designed it are no longer there, imagine the anxiety and having a company lose competitive advantage, right? We got to accelerate this process to get to a modern infrastructure. We talked about security. The benefits is that you're deploying on the latest hardware-based security for root of trust protection. There's a ton of innovation that has happened both at the hardware level as well as at the software level that you can take advantage. And I think it's also a case about not doing one but not the other. The software and the hardware factors have become so interdependent that the latest software from Microsoft, whether it's SQL Server or Windows Server, takes advantage of those hardware features that Intel is delivering, and vice versa. So think of this as an opportunity to not just do one, but do both. You need to run the latest software not on an 8-year-old hardware infrastructure, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, but on more modern, or vice versa. Still run Windows 2008 on the latest server technology. Now, there may be some unique requirements, no doubt. I don't think it's the same for everybody, that you have to continue to do that, and there are options to be able to mitigate that risk. Compliance is critical, so we're obviously going to get that benefit. You're compliant, especially dealing with EU citizens with GDPR, SOX in the US, right? Getting to that latest infrastructure will mean you're compliant now, faster data recovery, and then data backup for less risk, right? We talked about HCI. Some of the surveys have shown results up to 55% lower cost with HCI compared to public cloud. 90% will adopt a hybrid strategy. We've emphasized that. I think the study is clearly proving. Ramnik, if you attended, shared a story from Ignite on how even just surveying the users in a keynote talk, a majority of them are either on the path or have not all have already done deployments of hybrid cloud and are evaluating multi-cloud strategies, not pure public cloud or pure on-prem. 73% cite operational efficiency and cost reduction as the primary drivers for HCI. And there's centralized management abilities, right? These are getting pretty easy these days, whether it is now leveraging Azure Stack HCI or any solutions out there, but running SQL Server on an HCI configuration gives you the best bang for the buck. Everyone's talking about AI, and these are new emerging workloads that enterprises are dealing with. So this is, we cannot design these infrastructures just thinking of the old way of how we ran a SQL Server application. It requires innovative thinking, it requires the right technology, right? So we have to design these for the new workloads. And of course, the accelerated pace, the agile pace at which developers want to create the cloud native apps, they're using DevOps processes, right? We have to be prepared for all of those, and that is not possible with legacy again, right? So 10x more frequent release windows for new features, agile development, faster release of features. We can achieve that through modern infrastructure. 60% of CIOs plan to increase investment in AI by more than 50%. That's a fast moving pace at which everybody is trying to leverage AI to deliver business advantage. A 64% improvement in ability to develop new apps per year, right? So this is the entire story around the DevOps process. We cannot deliver these still keeping the old infrastructure. Intel and Microsoft have partnered for a long time. I think whether it is on the client side or on the server side, no new news there. And we are partnering to deliver the right solutions, even for this acute problem we are seeing in the environment about legacy SQL Server and Windows Server and modernizing. Intel obviously is innovating on the hardware side. We have the Xeon Scalable processors. We've just announced the second generation of those. There's a ton of innovation going on the storage side, Optane SSDs, as well as innovative technologies with persistent memory that we can deliver high capacity, low cost compared to DRAM. And high capacity means, you could be loading much bigger databases straight into the memory. And there's a lot of exciting innovation going on in that space. Microsoft obviously is also innovating a ton with Windows Server 2016, now with 2019 G8. We have SQL Server 2017 in the market today, and they're adding a whole lot of features with 2019 that you're going to hear, or if you've not already heard today, we hear more from Microsoft. One thing Intel is working on is how do we bring these together and actually pre-validate and ensure that the configurations that we're building are actually optimized for the typical workload that you have, so that you as a user don't have to go through that validation and spend a ton of time. So these are what we are calling select solutions. So when you go to a partner, your favorite OEM or to the favorite SI and ask for an Intel select solution, what you get is a pre-validated solution based on that pre-validated configuration that meets a certain benchmark. So we're trying to shift that burden to Intel and to Microsoft to give that pre-validated solution so that you don't have to do all that work and can directly go to deciding on the full configuration. So look for select solutions, and you're going to hear more later in Ken's talk as well. To get to some specifics around Windows Server, if clearly Microsoft has done a ton of investment in 2016 and moving into 2019. HCI is a key part of that. I'm going to focus on 2019 since we're already, you are able to download that today and use that as your primary operating system. Linux container support, shielded VMs, security, unique hybrid platform with easier connection to Azure services. This is where the hybrid aspect of it comes. You could be looking for Azure for your backup services, but may have to keep your workload on-prem. Windows 19 SQL can now connect to Azure and give you that hybrid capabilities, and in place OS upgrade from Windows Server 2012. When you combine the two, Windows Server 2019 has been optimized on Xeon Scalable as well. There's hardware innovation. We're noticing up to 4x performance over 4 to 5 year old servers. These are many core servers, and this is a benchmark that was done on the first generation Xeon Scalable, and we're updating that for the second generation. On the software side, just to reiterate the points, hybrid data center platform built for next generation flash storage. So just again, from a storage standpoint, there's no longer a spinning disk world, right? It's all flash, and the software has been optimized to work and maximize the use of flash technology. Software-defined compute, storage, and networking is now enabled with the new operating systems, and enhanced security. And I have another slide that can match the two to communicate to you how the security aspects are enhanced on both hardware and the software side. So if you just look at the breadth of compute, memory, storage, and networking, and when we compare to an 8-year-old server that's running Windows Server 2008 R2 versus a Xeon Scalable platform with Windows Server 2019, and if you look at each of those pillars, there's a lot we are fitting into the current processors, right? This is, again, 7 times the number of cores that we dealt with in 8-year-old servers, and that just went up with the second generation. There is AVX 512, the vector extensions, there is security encryption acceleration through AES and I that are now enabled through hardware and through the processors. Memory, the capacity of the memory has grown 4 to 16 times. Optane DC persistent memory is the breakthrough innovative technology. You're going to hear a lot more in the next talk on how this technology works and brings you a huge amount of competitive differentiation. Storage, hyperconverged infrastructure. You cannot do that with the old systems which are potentially deployed with traditional SAN. IRAP RDMA is another differentiation through these technologies that was not available in the past. And then, like I mentioned, there's obviously use of advanced flash through NVMe, NVIDIA support, and the Optane SSDs. Networking, we just talked about it. This is either through high capacity NICs that we have deployed and the support through RDMA. Now you can obviously communicate with servers that are no longer in the same data center, but now are geographically dispersed, whether it is cloud to or on-prem. And that brings a huge amount of differentiation, the ability to use RDMA. Underneath all of that is a security pillar that is now much more robust, both by combining the hardware and the software aspects, whether it's UEFI, TPM 2.0 secure boot on the hardware side, BitLocker, ACNI, and then shielded VMs on the operating system. So there's a strong foundation of security upon which we're building the combined software and hardware infrastructure that you can leverage and rely on as you move forward and modernize. Costs obviously is a high factor of that decision. Where through our benchmarks, we have seen that you can at least consolidate around 20 servers that you deployed on an E5 system to 5 servers on the Xeon Scalable 8180. That's a 60% reduction in server. That's a server footprint that you can reduce. That's a TCO that you can reduce for your data centers. Anytime there is innovative new technology, it leads to consolidation. Not new, but achieving the 60% is what's important, right? And if you're managing a data center, this is critical. Reducing that footprint means reduced power, reduced cooling, so on and so forth. So this is amazing amount of savings that we're trying to bring through the innovative technology. Just to pictorially show how Windows Server has emerged from the 2008 version to 2019, you can see, and obviously a lot of gray means these are the modern features, these are modern requirements to be able to compete in the modern world that were just not possible with the older versions. And all of those have been enabled and are actively under use with 2019. So you're missing out if the decision to modernize to these versions is going to be continued to be delayed. That you're not able to use this, you're opening yourself for vulnerable attacks. and TCO savings, right? So this is important. This was to mainly show you that how much has the software changed over the last 8 years, and to be ready for the current as well as future challenges. These versions are become more almost essential to upgrade to. Switching gears to the SQL side, the collaboration on SQL as well is a pretty long-running collaboration between Intel and Microsoft. Microsoft clearly with the SQL Server 2017 have delivered higher performance processing workloads of all types at breakthrough speeds. There are benchmarks that we can reach back to Microsoft to communicate to you consistent experience. This is a matter of, if you heard Ramnik talk today, it's a hybrid cloud experience, right? Whether you want to leverage SQL on-prem or in the cloud, the goal is to deliver a consistent experience, and that is what Microsoft is delivering. And whether it is innovative hardware technology on-prem or with Azure, Intel is delivering that innovation along with Microsoft, right? So you're getting that combination. This is not just a conversation only about on-prem. No matter where your decision is, it's a choice that you as a user is going to make, and in Microsoft and Intel will deliver that value wherever your choice is. And then security, Microsoft TDE combined with ACNI from Intel is accelerating encryption, and Microsoft SQL Server has been named the least vulnerable database for the last 7 years now, 8. This is the NIST study that you can refer to see how they rated SQL Server as, and that's great news. And this is only going to get better with SQL 2019. I think with all the conversations that are going on around AI and machine learning, there's a ton of innovation that Microsoft is delivering to SQL Server. Support for graph data, advanced machine learning with R and Python, and obviously Intel and Microsoft are already working on SQL 2019. I'm spending some time here on 2017 because this is already available to you today. And I'm hoping that through the other talks earlier today and later today, you're hearing more and more about what is in the burner for 2019. Native T-SQL scoring, adaptive query processing. So there's again a ton of innovation that was already pumped into SQL 2017. If this is a decision you're ready to make in the short term to modernize, then your 2017 is available to you. Again, to build on that story, whether it is a choice of platform and language, there's obviously options that SQL Server 17 is delivering industry-leading performance, especially if you're evaluating SQL Server from a competing solution, then you have a lot of data to analyze and see that SQL Server may be your best choice to move to layers of security, no doubt. Commercial database with AI built in, so support for R, Python, native T-SQL scoring. And there's obviously a cost aspect to this. I would like you guys to reach out to Microsoft to understand the competition dynamics on how SQL Server just excels against some of their competitors in terms of cost as well. And consistent experience, whether it is on-prem or public cloud, right? That's the big value proposition when it comes to SQL Server. Now, I think it's clear that SQL Server has always been a Windows-based platform, but with 17, now it runs on Linux, and that's a very exciting transition and an option that they have delivered to the customers so that you have a choice, especially if you're a Linux shop now, no hesitation, you can adopt SQL Server 17 and equally run it on Linux. And they continue to build on that with 19. Same thing with SQL Server machine learning services. Everything is going to be about AI. They've made SQL Server into a much more robust platform to deal with AI and machine learning workloads, support for R and Python tied to that, real-time operational analytics, and especially the story around looking across the data that you have and delivering insights, grabbing insights out of that and delivering to you is the big innovative feature that they're adding with SQL 2019. And I hope you've heard that as well. So I think that this just gets much better because analytics is a key problem that enterprise users are dealing with SQL 2019. GDPR, if any of you are dealing with European Union users, is an absolute necessity to be compliant with, right? This is about um, if you're storing, processing, doing anything with data of a EU citizen, then you need to be compliant with GDPR. And SQL Server is able to deliver that to you, whether it is tracking personal data, separation of duties, encryption everywhere, audit capabilities, and consistent programmability experience. There are SQL 27 features that were built in that are allowing users to now quickly meet that compliance requirement. So this is a very critical. This is already active as of last year. If any of you are still dealing with it, then it becomes even more necessary that you need to modernize to the latest operating systems and database versions. Similar comparison of how a ton of features were added to SQL 2017 since SQL 2008. This is visually, hopefully is motivating you on how much innovation Microsoft has delivered with the latest version. And I hope to build this out with another column on SQL 2019 to see how much innovation is coming in with 2019 as well, whether it's performance, availability, security, manageability, and programmability on BI and analytics. Many of these, in fact, if you look at the column around 2008, none of those were available with the old versions. Now, there were absolute reasons why we had to use those versions. There will be enterprises who will continue to stay on those versions because of a requirement around their applications and what they need to deliver, no doubt. But if you have the choice and are exposing the risk to your business, then you certainly should look at modernizing to the latest versions. In terms of comparing a legacy platform versus modern, again, I'm trying to visually articulate to you on at a compute memory, memory support, data storage, NICs. Of course, we had the technology 8 years ago as well, or 5 years ago. And you can see that in the middle section. There were certain performance metrics or capacities that we delivered. And on the right column, you can see what the latest Xeon Scalable platform running Windows Server 2019 can deliver. A summary of what we just talked about, right? High amount of core count, much larger memory support, data storage using flash technology that can deliver high performance. That's almost essential to use today to deliver high performance storage. NICs that are much more capable of speeds, especially hybrid cloud configurations demand that. Security, a combination of hardware and software security features that will give you that much more advantage than solving this only from a a software standpoint or solving it only from a hardware standpoint. The combination, the interdependency is why we're trying to communicate that. Think of this as a software and a hardware refresh opportunity or a point in time. And a ton of storage replication, innovation that I mentioned. And then with HCI, Windows Admin Center, one of the most popular downloads for Windows Server at Microsoft Team, ability to manage multiple clusters across the board with the Admin Center, right? And that's the value prop with Azure Stack HCI is only getting better with that. The approach to modernization can't be piecemeal. We're trying to look at how do we take a holistic approach. You have to think hybrid cloud because that has become as a necessity. You cannot build everything on-prem. You cannot rely move everything to cloud. Hybrid cloud is the choice. How do you design your modernization approach around hybrid cloud? Because 90% of the enterprises will adopt a hybrid strategy by 2020. We're talking about virtualized network. You need to design to deal with virtualized network just as the capacity grows and the technology is not just about launching hardware-based switches. There's a lot of software-defined innovation that's going on. So we need to look at it from a virtualized network standpoint. Future-ready storage, data growth greater than 30% CAGR, while IT storage investment is approximately 3% growth. How do you look for software-defined storage as a way to modernizing, not the traditional way of doing things? Analytics and AI strategy, CIO's number one investment priority, design for the future. Think about what your corporations or what your users are doing in this space, and you need to design the infrastructure for that. And then multi-layered security. Is there any CIO that's not talking about security, or any user that's not talking about security today, right? And the investments are going to just skyrocket. So when you're talking about modernizing, what we are trying to communicate is think about not go at it not from a one angle, but you have to think of all of these, because these will be emerging needs, and you want to design your modernization strategy based on all of those. That said, I'll pause and I will turn over to Vaishali to talk about some of the SQL related benchmarks we're seeing with the combination of Microsoft and Intel technology. Vaishali?
Hi, everyone. So what we want to show is, Eman touched upon a lot of different things on why it's important to move and how Intel and Microsoft has worked together to deliver best performance on Intel. So here is one of the examples that we would like to show. What this is showcasing is a OLAP kind of a workload with SQL Server 2017 running on second generation Intel Xeon processor, and you can see that you get about 24.8x better performance. That's huge. So it's a old hardware, old software running on new hardware, new software. So it's older generation of Intel hardware running SQL Server 2008 that a lot of you might have running today. And if you were to upgrade your hardware and software, your experience would be 24.8x better, in addition to all the security and other features that Eman touched upon. This also means that you can either run much faster, or you can think of consolidation, and that would be saving you some money. So better TCO. In this particular case, we are using same amount of memory allocated to the SQL Server, and also similar storage is used. So on the next slide, we will also showcase a demo picking up some of the queries and show what it would really mean to the user if they are running these queries. If how fast they'll see the results coming back. So, and this is the same system that we compared the previous data point, but this is just to see if you are a user running these queries and trying to make quick decisions. These are some customer representative kind of queries. This is how fast it's going to work. So on the right hand side, as you can see, all 6 queries are already completed, but if you're still on the older hardware and older software stack, you would still be stuck at your second or third query. So this is what you get, and this is just new hardware, new software, and with the similar memory and storage at the back end. So it's really an apples to apples comparison if you were to make that upgrade. So in once this completes, we can, this is, yeah, and you can see in the center of each of the queries, it says how fast each queries are, in seconds, and it's also saying for different queries are seeing different amount of performance. What I shared in the previous slide, 24.8 is a cumulative performance when we run total number of queries, 22 different kind of queries that are out there. And here we have hand picked 6 of them. So again, as Eman was saying, that you have your choice whether you want to run in cloud or hybrid or on-prem. Similarly now, since SQL Server 2017, you also have a choice on whether you want to run on Windows or Linux. How do you want to run it, whether Docker, different offerings of Linux. So it's your choice. You get better experience, faster experience, multiple choices. So this, and we have worked very closely, Intel has, with Microsoft to make sure whatever your choice be, you are going to get a good experience. It's all optimized and integrated for the best experience on Intel. And this is showing one of the industry publication, the publications out there. We already had leadership publication on Intel with SQL Server on different versions of SQL and different hardware from Intel, and now there are also Linux-based publication where different OEMs are partnering. There are three-way partnerships with Microsoft, in this particular case HP, and they've shown that you can get really good price per performance with this. So this is referencing to a TPC publication and it's TPC Edge at 1 terabyte scale factor. Yeah, so and here we are showing that there are various publication, and Intel is in leadership position, whether it be 4-socket TPCE on Windows, on Linux, TPC Edge on 4-socket and 2-socket, and there are different OEMs that we partner with: Lenovo, Cisco, HPE. There's a Dell link which will point to their publication, but across the board, you'll see that there's IA leadership with SQL Server. So that should be your choice when you want to upgrade your software and hardware.
Okay. So in summary, let's bring it back home. The world of business has changed. Time to market and speed is the essential requirement. This is a big moment of time, especially triggered with some of the software pieces that are coming to an end of support, and Intel and Microsoft are bringing innovative technologies both on the hardware and the software side for you. And we're really looking at this as a transition point from the traditional way of doing things to cloud, whether it is private, public, where we think the majority will be embarking on a path of hybrid cloud if you've not already. So let's look at how do we make that journey easy for you from these technologies, and hybrid cloud to multi-cloud, right? In terms of next steps, if there's more information needed or more knowledge around how these technologies work together and especially meet your particular need, certainly look to pay a visit to the Microsoft Technology Center. We've talked about select solutions briefly. There is partnership between Intel and Microsoft on SQL Server-based select solutions. Certainly visit the page. You'll see what we're doing there. And also, when you talk to your favorite OEM and SI, ask for select solutions so you can hear what is already there for you to purchase. And then certainly look at some extra collateral that can convey to you how does the Microsoft and Intel technologies work best together at the link that I provided. That said, I will turn it back to Jay.
All right. Thank you very much, Eamon and Michelle. I do have one question. It's almost all of our servers are AMD CPU based. Are there any plans to discuss that hardware platform?
I didn't obviously have a plan to talk about AMD, but if there is a specific question that you can reach out to me. My email address is on the slide deck to learn the differentiation, especially moving forward, then certainly I would love to get that data back to you.
Okay. There's no other questions. We can pause for a couple of seconds to see if anything else comes in, but looks pretty calm there. So we'll just end it for today. Okay. Please, thanks again. And for everyone, stay tuned for our next session, SQL Server 2008 EOS coming, Modernizing with Intel Technologies Part 2 with Ken Letourneau and Alexander Convalas. And thank you everyone for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you.